Welcome to World Prism. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. In 2023 and 2024, Argentina faced a defining economic crossroads. The country, long plagued by inflation, debt and repeated financial crises, found itself at a breaking point. The streets of Buenos Aires buzzed with uncertainty as citizens grappled with rising prices and a currency in freefall. Plagued by chronic instability and a shortage of US dollars, the nation made a bold move. It began using the Chinese yuan for trade and debt payments, signaling a shift away from dollar dependence. This was not just a financial maneuver but a statement of intent. Argentina was ready to look beyond its traditional partners. This pivot was driven by years of financial hardship and mounting frustration with Western-led institutions like the IMF, whose strict loan conditions fueled public discontent. Many Argentinians saw these policies as deepening their economic woes, sparking protests and calls for change. The allure of new partners, especially China and the BRICS bloc, offered hope for greater stability and sovereignty. For Argentina, joining forces with emerging economies promised not only financial relief, but also a chance to redefine its place in the global order. In 2023, Argentina tapped a currency swap line with China, using yuan to pay for imports and even to partially repay IMF debt, a landmark moment for a non-Asian economy. This unprecedented step was closely watched by other nations facing similar challenges. The invitation to join BRICS promised access to new markets and development financing, but political volatility soon intervened. The prospect of deeper integration with BRICS sparked both excitement and anxiety within Argentina's political class. A change in government in late 2023 threw Argentina's new strategy into question, highlighting the tension between aligning with the West and forging new alliances. The new leadership faced tough choices about whether to continue the eastward pivot or return to more familiar ground. Argentina's story is one of navigating global power shifts while wrestling with domestic turmoil. As the world watches, the nation's next steps could reshape not only its own future, but also the balance of power across Latin America and beyond. To understand Argentina's choices on the world stage, we must first look at BRICS, a powerful bloc that brings together Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These five nations, each with their own unique strengths and challenges, have joined forces to amplify their voices in global affairs. BRICS isn't a military alliance or a formal economic union. Instead, it serves as a platform for its members to coordinate strategies, increase their influence, and push for a multipolar world order. One that is less dominated by the United States and Western powers. At the heart of BRICS' mission is a desire to reform the global financial system. For decades, the US dollar and Western-led institutions like the IMF and World Bank have set the rules, often leaving emerging economies with little say. BRICS nations want a bigger seat at the table in global finance. They seek to reduce their vulnerability to US policies, especially the use of sanctions as a tool of economic pressure. Their strategy is to promote the use of local currencies in trade, bypassing the dollar wherever possible. This helps insulate their economies from American pressure and gives them more control over their own financial destinies. Concrete steps include the creation of the new development bank, which funds infrastructure and development projects without relying on Western financing. BRICS is also developing new payment systems to rival SWIFT, such as the BRICS Bridge and Russia's SPFM, aiming to make cross-border transactions faster and less dependent on Western networks. The 2024 expansion to include Saudi Arabia and the UAE added significant momentum, opening the door to oil trade in non-dollar currencies and strengthening the bloc's global reach. As BRICS pushes for de-dollarization, it is actively reshaping the global economic landscape, challenging the old order and offering new opportunities for countries seeking alternatives to Western dominance. Argentina's embrace of the yuan was driven by economic desperation, not ideology. Facing a relentless financial crisis, the country's leaders were forced to look beyond traditional partners and solutions. The decision to turn to China's currency was not a grand geopolitical statement but a matter of survival for millions of Argentines. By 2023, with reserves depleted and default looming, the currency swap with China became a lifeline. Argentina's central bank was running on fumes and the threat of another painful default hung over the nation. The swap agreement with China provided a crucial injection of liquidity at a time when few others were willing to help. This swap allowed Argentina to pay for vital imports in yuan, keeping factories running and shelves stocked when dollars ran out. It meant that essential goods, everything from machinery to medicine, could still reach Argentine shores, even as the peso collapsed and the dollar became scarce. The most dramatic moment came when Argentina used yuan to make a partial IMF debt payment, an unprecedented move that signaled a willingness to bypass traditional financial channels. This bold step sent shockwaves through international markets, raising questions about the future of the global financial order and the dominance of the dollar. The symbolism was powerful. A major Latin American nation using China's currency to meet obligations to the US-led IMF. It was a clear sign that the world's financial landscape was shifting and that new alliances were being forged out of necessity. Locked out of global credit markets and frustrated by IMF austerity, Argentina found China's support came with fewer political strings. For Argentine officials, the yuan swap was not just about money. It was about regaining a measure of economic autonomy and dignity in the face of repeated crises. For China, it was a chance to showcase the yuan as a viable reserve currency and deepen its influence in Latin America. The move fit neatly into Beijing's broader strategy of expanding its economic reach and offering alternatives to Western-dominated institutions. The reliance on the yuan was a temporary fix, but it highlighted Argentina's urgent need for alternatives. It also exposed the vulnerabilities of countries dependent on the dollar and the risks of being cut off from global finance. The move underscored the growing role of China as a lender and backstop for countries in crisis. As more nations face economic headwinds, China's willingness to step in could reshape the balance of power in international finance. For Argentina, the yuan offered a brief respite in a long-running economic storm, a reminder that in times of crisis, new solutions can emerge from unexpected places. Just as Argentina seemed set on an eastern course, politics intervened. The election of Javier Milei in late 2023 marked a dramatic reversal. He pledged to dollarize the economy, align with the US and Israel, and reject communist regimes like China. One of his first acts formally declining BRICS membership, a move celebrated in Washington but seen as a setback for the bloc. Yet despite anti-China rhetoric, Milei's government still relied on the China swap line to manage the ongoing currency crisis. The contradiction was stark, politically distancing from China while remaining economically dependent. Argentina's experience shows how economic realities can override even the most radical political shifts. China's influence in Argentina runs deep. Beyond currency swaps, it's the country's second-largest trading partner and a major investor. Chinese firms have financed railways, dams, and, crucially, invested billions in Argentina's lithium sector, vital for the global battery and EV market. These investments secure China's supply chain and give Argentina much-needed capital and technology. The lithium connection is strategic. Argentina sits atop vast reserves, and Chinese companies are positioning themselves to dominate this critical resource. Even with Milei's anti-China stance, the scale of Chinese investment makes a full break nearly impossible. Economic ties, once established, create powerful mutual interests that often outlast political change. The BRICS push for de-dollarization has not gone unnoticed in Washington. The US sees these moves as a direct challenge to the dollar's global dominance, a foundation of American power. In response, the US has threatened and imposed tariffs on BRICS nations, aiming to discourage moves away from the dollar. Ironically, these actions have only strengthened BRICS's resolve to build alternative systems and trade in local currencies. The result, a slow but steady erosion of the dollar's share in global trade, especially within the BRICS bloc and in oil sales. The yuan's role is growing, particularly among countries facing US sanctions. While the dollar remains dominant, the trend is toward a more fragmented, multi-currency world. The rivalry between the US and BRICS is accelerating this shift. Argentina's future is uncertain, caught between Western ideology and Eastern economic necessity. Milei's government may talk tough, but the need for Chinese investment and market access will likely force pragmatism. For BRICS, expansion and de-dollarization remain top priorities, with new payment systems and local currency trade at the forefront. The US must now navigate a world where its financial supremacy is no longer guaranteed. The global order is fragmenting, with multiple currencies and blocs competing for influence. Argentina's journey is a microcosm of this larger drama, where ideology, economics, and geopolitics collide. The world of 2026 is more complex and uncertain, with old rules fading and new ones still emerging. The final shape of this new order remains unwritten, but the direction is clear, towards a more multipolar world.